Hey everybody, welcome back to Pragmatic EDH. Today we're going to be diving into something extra hot. We got something real juicy for you tonight. And what that really is going to be is Extus, the Auric Overlord, a 2/4 human warlock with double strike that is in black, white, and red in its actual colors. The front is black and white only, the back is black and red. We'll talk about that later. Basically, what it has is an ability that has a Magecraft trigger, and Magecraft says whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery, do this. Its Magecraft trigger is to return a non-legendary from your graveyard to your hand, allowing you to functionally recast creatures. Very good graveyard strategy. Let's dive right in. This deck is one of my favorite of all time. Really, just the commander is one of my favorite commanders of all time. I started with a Mardu deck, and I will die by the hands of Mardu. Bless up on that. But basically, what's going to happen is anytime we're going to be using some sort of instant or sorcery, if we have a way to get it back, we can do the thing again. Something of note, something real cool with this commander, is that if you have something that says, as an additional cost to cast, sack or discard a card, when our commander is in play, you pay the cost before you cast the spell, meaning Magecraft will trigger, allowing us to return whatever we discarded or sacrificed to our hand. This allows the Extus deck to generate tremendous value, and me, being your guide to Extus, am happy to take you there, to the value train. Diving right into our game plan briefly, our game plan is something that's going to be real simple in this game, and that is to get our commander out, as we are a combo focused deck, meaning that we are not really going to heavily dive into the game plan, other than knowing we need to be able to draw cards, we need to be able to cast our commander, and that really has to do more with what we're looking for with mulligans and our openers. So making sure that we are properly targeting our hand and sculpting our play to be able to do these two things, to be able to allow us to create an easy line for a combo so we can win the game off of it. As your guide to the sauce of Extus and its incredible Shadow Wizard Money Gang power, what we really need to concern ourselves with is our combos. And our combos, which there are 4 main combos in the deck, are fairly complicated. So we're actually going to run through those, and those will really be our MVPs. I'll have all the cards I'm referencing on screen. Just pay attention and I'll read off the cards to you. So do not worry, Pragmatic EDH is here to explain so you can live your best life. Something to note about a lot of our combos is you'll notice that they are kind of heavy on cards. They'll be 3 to 4 on average. The weird thing about this deck is because it's so safe that keeping its creatures safe means it's really good at assembling kind of larger combos, because a lot of times they're value pieces that we then combo with. So that's something to note, be aware of, and don't fret. Diving into our first combo, it's a 4-card combo that uses the front side of our commander, Extus, the card Sneak Attack, the card Ardent Elementalist, and the card Burnt Offering. Sneak Attack is an enchantment that says you can pay 1 red to put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield with haste, and you sack it at the end step. Ardent Elementalist is a red human warlock, I believe, or shaman, that allows you to return an instant or sorcery from your graveyard to your hand when it enters. Burnt Offering is a 1 mana instant that says pay 1 as an additional cost, sacrifice a creature, the magic words we talked about earlier, to create a red and a black mana in any combination of color equal to the mana cost of the sacrificed creature. Now, putting these all together to assemble a win line is not necessarily super complicated, but it requires a bit of a steady process to pull off. And it really doesn't have a lot of board state that matters other than our commander being out. So in this combo, first things first, we need to have our commander in play. This is important for any combo that really involves our commander, so we'll kind of skip past this in the future. But basically, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be activating Sneak Attack for 1 red to put our Ardent Elementalist into play in order to trigger its ability. And what this is going to grab really doesn't matter. We're assuming we have Burnt Offering in hand here, and if Burnt Offering is in the graveyard, we're returning Burnt Offering with our Ardent Elementalist. What we're going to do is then cast Burnt Offering, targeting our Ardent Elementalist, making 2 black and 2 red mana. The reason why is we want a diverse mana pool of each. Basically, what's going to happen is we're going to use the trigger from casting as an additional cost to cast sack. The trigger will then grab Ardent Elementalist out of our graveyard with Extus to our hand, which we will then use one of the 2 red we generated, leaving 1 red and 2 black floating, to put the Ardent Elementalist into play. The Ardent Elementalist will then trigger grabbing the Burnt Offering, which is now a loop. And what we do once we have this loop going, assuming we're in first main, we are going to then sacrifice our commander after generating infinite black and red to cast the backside infinitely. And the backside says, create a 3/6 avatar and force your opponents to sack a creature. The 3/6 avatar has the ability to deal 3 damage to each of your opponents when it attacks. So we're making an infinitely wide hasty board that does non-combat damage on attack. So chances are you'll probably win off this, but the way we go about this is after we've made our infinite mana, we use Burnt Offering to sack our commander, so then we can cast the backside of the command zone. Keeping in mind, we will lose access to our commander if we do this. Our next combo has 3 cards in it, and what these 3 cards do is our commander, we're very familiar, the card Worthy Cause, which is a white instant for 1 with buyback 2, that says as an additional cost to cast, sacrifice a creature, and then gain life equal to the sacrificed creature's toughness. The next card is Commander All-Star Dockside Extortionist. Dockside Extortionist is a 2-drop, 1/2 goblin that says when it enters, make a treasure for each enchantment and artifact your opponents control. What this allows us to do is loop Dockside infinitely for infinite treasures. So the way that we go about doing this is we cast Dockside with Worthy Cause in hand and our commander in play. What's going to happen is Dockside needs to make at least 6 treasures because it is a total of 5 mana to cast Dockside and then cast Worthy Cause with buyback. So if we have 6, we're netting a treasure every time we do this. So what's going to happen is after we create infinite mana by casting Dockside and then sacking it to Worthy Cause, which then triggers our commander grabbing our Dockside once again and returning Worthy Cause to our hand because we're paying for its buyback to return it to our hand, we are then going to demonstrate a loop, make infinite treasure. And with the infinite treasure, we're then going to sacrifice our commander and cast the backside infinitely. Our next combo is one I believe that I pioneered, to be completely honest with you. And the reason I say that is because I'm fairly certain this combo is something I came up with first, because I played a lot when this commander first came out with different combos, different ideas. And this is one that I found and I've seen literally no one else play it in the deck. So what it is our commander, obviously. Brash Taunter. Brash Taunter is a 5 mana goblin that's indestructible, and when it's dealt damage, you deal that much damage to target opponent, and has the ability to fight for 3 mana. It's also a 1/1. The last card is a card called Chain of Plasma, and Chain of Plasma is a 2-drop instant that deals 3 damage to any target, and if that player or permanent wishes to, they can discard a card to copy the spell. And so how this combo works is to have a single creature card in your graveyard, have your commander, and have Brash Taunter in play. You cast Chain of Plasma, targeting Brash Taunter. You then pay the cost to copy the spell, which will then cause Extus's ability to trigger. And what's going to happen is then you're going to discard a card, which you will then make a copy of the new spell, which is an instant, returning the card you discarded to your hand, being able to allow you to deal infinite damage with Chain of Plasma to Brash Taunter. And dealing infinite damage to Brash Taunter is infinite damage to your opponents. Very clean, it's very easy to pull off, and a lot of times the cards that you will show your opponents, like with these, they're not going to care about until you put them all together. So keeping that in mind, it's an out of nowhere play. I personally love it because to me it's my own, and honestly I feel like I pioneered it, and it may be the first one to talk about on YouTube, so who knows. Our 4th combo is actually completely uninvolved with our commander, as is our surprise secret 5th. What this one is a card called Dualcaster Mage, which is a 3-drop 2/2 human wizard with flash. It has the ability of when it enters to copy an instant or sorcery. This is very powerful with our commander in general, so this is just a great value piece. However, when paired with a card called Twin Flame being a sorcery for 2 that says copy target creature you control. It gains haste, sacrifice that token at the end step. Basically what this is going to allow us to do is cast Twin Flame, which we're then going to flash in Dualcaster, making a copy of the spell on the stack. What this is going to do is say we're now going to make a copy using the copy made from Dualcaster Mage of the card Twin Flame to make another copy of Dualcaster Mage, which we're then going to resolve, which will then make a token. The token will enter, which will then now make another copy of Twin Flame, making another hasty token of Dualcaster, and we will loop this ad infinitum. This is going to allow us to create an infinitely wide 2/2 hasty board state until the end of turn. This allows us to win with very little effort, just through combat alone, and it's nice because it doesn't involve our commander, and both cards in the deck are just good cards on their own, so being able to put them together with just a little bit of effort is really easy to just assemble a win with. Our final combo, our secret hidden combo, our 5th combo, is 3 cards. It uses Ardent Elementalist, returning again, Saw in Half, and Culling the Weak. What all 3 of these cards are is Ardent Elementalist is a 2/1 human shaman in red for 4 that says when it enters the battlefield, return an instant or sorcery from your graveyard to your hand. Saw in Half is a 3-drop instant in black, that's 2 and a black, that says destroy target creature, its controller makes 2 copies, each with their power and toughness cut in half and rounded up. Our last card is Culling the Weak, and Culling the Weak is a 1-drop instant that says as an additional cost to cast, sacrifice a creature, you then make 4 black mana. How all of these fit together is you're going to have Ardent Elementalist in play. That is our starting point. Then we will cast Saw in Half, targeting Ardent Elementalist. What that's going to do is create 2 copies of Ardent Elementalist, and in doing so, that will allow us to be able to grab Culling the Weak from our graveyard if it's in the graveyard, and Saw in Half. Basically, we're getting Saw in Half back plus one other thing. In this instance of the loop, we're going to be grabbing Culling the Weak. This could also work with Burnt Offering, but Culling the Weak is a card we haven't talked about yet, so we'll use that one instead. What this is going to allow us to do is make infinite 1/1 Ardent Elementalists, make an infinitely large storm count, and finally, it's going to allow us to make infinite mana of either black if we're using Culling the Weak only, or if we're using Burnt Offering, it's infinite red and black. And with infinite red and black, we can cast the backside of our commander. With infinite black, we're able to do many, many things in the deck, one of which is to use any one card now that we've got infinite black mana. We can start using our Saw in Half to generate infinite casts of any one black spell in our deck, so it'd be very good for us to be able to do that kind of thing. Briefly and finally, before our recap, we're going to go over the strengths and weaknesses of the deck. Our strengths are, first off, really decent cards can become even more decent because of how the actual deck is formatted, and those are cards that allow you to discard or sacrifice or whatever when our commander is in play. Those become completely positive in terms of their value. There's no downside. Second, we have different combos in the deck that actually allow for easy pivots, so if we're interrupted or distracted by any sort of problem in play, we can probably switch to something else in order to win. Third and finally, we have a lot of burst value, meaning we can kind of win out of nowhere. We're able to just generate massive amounts of value and probably win the game off of it. And making sure that we take advantage of this is important, otherwise we're going to force our opponents to sit through very long games, and that's not very cool. This deck has 3 primary weaknesses, but the first and second are kind of the same thing. It is a very commander-reliant deck. It is super weak to losing its commander if it's trying to rely on the first 3 main combos of the deck, which use the commander as, well, the value piece until they go off as a combo piece. So, commander removal, really bad for us. Second weakness, this is a creature strategy heavy deck, so if there are things that turn off enter the battlefield triggers, if there are things that turn off creatures doing their thing, if there are things that don't allow us to use our creatures in general, that's going to kill us. We are not going to do very much, and we're going to be forced to go to our tertiary game plan, which is going to be beating our opponents to death with a Double Strike 2/4. We don't want to do that if we don't have to. And the third and final weakness is we are a graveyard deck. We are weak to graveyard hate. Graveyard hate will always screw us over, so being very cognizant of making sure that we're playing around our graveyard safely and making sure we're not going to get locked is something that you're going to have to keep in mind. Before we start the recap, I'd like to thank everyone so much for watching and listening. I'd just like to remind everybody to subscribe if you can. It doesn't seem like much to you, but it's huge for me, and it helps YouTube do their thing better. Anyway, without further ado, our recap is going to be that our commander is kind of the game plan. So we are commander reliant, so be careful of that. We use lots of combos. So this deck basically plays 0 games. It tries to just assemble a critical mass of stuff that you can't stop and win with that. And this deck is also very value heavy as the third recap piece. This deck is a value machine. It will just turn value into combos. Super good, very powerful stuff to be able to be doing is turning your generalized value into generalized combo. So make sure that you play around with the deck, you get some reps in before you try and bring this to anything like a high powered table, because this deck does have very weird lines and you have to be very careful not to screw yourself in your opening hand. So with that out of the way, I'd like to thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening once again. Pragmatic out.